Well, my name is Philip and I am addicted to tempo with surge training.
And you join me here enthusiastically pouring fuel onto the fire of my addiction, negotiating the TT segment between Redbourne and St Albans, North Hertfordshire. I'm unleashing my very best Victor Campenaerts cadence and I'm midway through a 60-second 400-watt surge. As you can see, it's relatively flat and straight, but the small changes in gradient necessitates many refinements to cadence and sometimes gearing in order to stay on the target power, which is about 135% of FTP. Critical to the tempo with surges training is working hard in order to catch the power when transitioning down back into lower tempo. And whether indoors or out, I sometimes find that I dip a little bit down into zone 2 before building back up into zone 3, lower zone 3. And my experience over the last 3 months has been that there's something very tangible related to working in this aspirational power range during the surges and then recovering at a respectable workload. It really helps dial in the progression across the full power curve. And since Coach Laverack first unleashed these into my training program, I've looked forward to them and loathed them in equal measure. But always I've welcomed the fitness improvements that come a week or two later. This was a 50-minute training block comprising 20 minutes lower tempo straight into 30 minutes tempo with surges. During a 30-minute block, I covered 18 kilometres, including 3 transitions through the roundabouts, and you'll see that provides 2 issues. Firstly, the roundabouts take the edge off the average power, but also, as you see here, they provide the temptation to ease off maybe a bit too enthusiastically. Yeah, definitely too enthusiastically during the run-in after one of the surges. And I reckon those 2 factors combined caused 10 watts or so to be dragged off the average power, which was 264 watts, normalised 300. Both of those 10 to 15 watts down on the same training indoors. But the 60-second surges were quality, times 10, averaging 390 watts, albeit the final 2 at 377 and 370 watts respectively, well, they indicate a little more room for outdoor improvement. And with endorphins flowing profusely, I then set off on a nice little loop aiming at upper zone 2 power, albeit out the saddle at tempo on the short punchy climbs that prevail in this part of the world. It's North Hertfordshire and there's loads of little valleys and rolling terrain where it's actually quite hard to establish a sustained rhythm and cadence. So actually that makes it a great training in its own right versus the sanctuary and consistency of the turbo. I'd indulged in a few digs on a couple of the small punches, and as my mind turned to the prospect of baked products, more of that in just a second, I felt it rude not to open the taps up and out the saddle on the Station Road climb into Harpenden. And the legs and the Colnago, well, they obliged very willingly, with a nice little 2-minute effort at 370 watts. So overall it was a decent morning out, and now I can see what Ian Carson means by being a 220 man, because I looked at the power for the full training just under 2 hours, and for sure 208 watts. Well, that's pretty close to 220, isn't it, Ian? It is pretty close, I think, just 12 watts different. So with what I now know to be a very disappointing, I say it tongue-in-cheek, 208 watts under the belt for the 2 hours, albeit 250 watts normalised, and let's not forget the 1200 calories burned off, it was most definitely time, certainly in my mind, to vector in on Harpenden's finest bakery.
I present baked product Nirvana. Look at this. Look at those, the Belgian buns. Ooh, we know they're good. Too many delights. Time to don the protection. Now, when Colnago designed a C60, I'm certain, well, pretty sure, that this is what they had in mind for its primary purpose. Carrier of the baked swag for the aspiring climber. And that was a decent little 2-hour training block. 30 minutes tempo surges for the power, but also the mental fortitude. I was quite happy with the power there. Kind of staying in a 200 to 240 watt range for the 2-minute tempo. And then, well, starting at 400 watts or so for the 1-minute surges, and probably drifting down, as you saw there, towards the end into the 380 range. But a decent training. And then zone 2 on the flat and up and out the saddle for the little hills and the climbs. Got to negotiate this. Avoid disaster. Well done, Philip. So now, time for a driving lesson, as it happens, for my son. That's why I'm up and out and in the country. And obviously to get the baked products back up to London to enjoy with Jane. I got her a Belgian bun, FYI. I may have a little bit of it though. Jane's piece, my piece. For the effort. You join me back on the rollers. We're aiming for about a couple of hours extended. We're about 11 minutes in. And I'm pleased as punch to show you a newfound skill. A skill that's helped build a bit of confidence on the rollers, but also the bike handling skills, I hope. Now, I started this skill just learning to ride with one hand on the handlebar. I learned the value of being very gentle coming off and back onto the handlebar as follows. There we go. Look at the head, deep breaths. And back on gently. And I kind of practice this with both hands, just to feel comfortable. And gradually got to a position where I wanted to experiment no-handed. That's a bit harder. Obviously I was in the architrave. And I built up from 10 seconds no-handed, and most recently 5 minutes. And once again, you've got to focus on a nice, gentle, smooth movement, get fully upright, be looking ahead, and a nice core. So let's try it. Feels good. And if you like the video, Please remember to give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, of course give it a thumbs down. And please remember to subscribe. I'd be super grateful. But I found riding no-handed has certainly built the confidence here on the rollers. You've got to really focus on a nice pedaling technique, even power, as circular motion as possible. But also by sitting up, it enables you to relax, where it forces you to relax. And you learn to trust that the energy in the bike, I forgot what it's called, centrifugal force of the bike, will keep you upright. Now, key to riding no-handed is also getting back onto the handlebars. That's actually, once you're up and going, the trickiest part. So you're going to take a deep breath and try and gently get back onto the handlebars. And if I feel like I'm wobbling, I go nowhere near the brakes and I'm going to apply more power. Let's see if that works. That was okay. A little bit agricultural, a bit of a lunge there, but I am on camera. Anyway, about another hour and 45 to go. Maybe I might only do an hour and a half, we'll see. But definitely still really enjoying the process of learning to ride the rollers. And I present all the greens for the gains. Well, Scouts on a route, I promise fish and chips will be on the agenda soon. We have a great little fish and chip shop nearby. But tonight, well, fish, that's on the menu, but plenty of rice, because rice equals power gains. And there we go. A salmon roll and a rainbow roll. How good do they look? Although the light isn't great, I admit. Time for the pre-race weigh-in. Just creeping up a tad. Childhood memories with all the fast digesting carbohydrates. Look at that. Look at the sugars. Well, I've just completed the Bologna climbing race. 3 ascents, well actually 2 2/3, more of that in just a second. But thank you all very much for your very kind support in the live chat and the comments. It means a huge amount to me. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy our Saturday mornings, including all of our discourse on the world of finance and economics. Anyway, I digress. Turning back to the race, it was a decent race for me. I was in the front group throughout, but once again, I managed to create chaos and grab, well, not exactly defeat, but certainly mediocrity maybe, and not exactly from victory, but maybe from P3, albeit I reckon Keith Robertson, you'd have probably picked me. And sir, coming back on the flat in between the first and the second climb, and your second climb, well, kudos to you for clawing back a minute. Super impressive. Anyway, I got myself dropped on the second ascent, but I clawed my way back in as well, but nothing like the same kind of deficit that Keith clawed back. But then I miscalculated where the end of the race was on the third climb. But I mean, Zwift, why are you putting the end of a race 2/3 of the way up a perfectly nice climb? I mean, come on, nobody does that. Anyway, turning to the positives, it's a great VO2 max workout, any kind of race in Bologna. And on the first climb, I got myself a 5-minute power PB. 356 watts, obviously super good for me, so really happy with that. But also, kudos to the cornflakes and the sugar with the almond milk. It's a Durham Rider tip, but it's working really nicely for me ahead of a race or a hard training, and definitely I recommend it. Well, it's post-climb, and that can mean only one thing. Baked products are on the agenda, but there is a little refinement today, courtesy of my mum. Look at this, a beautiful lemon cake baked earlier on this week. Look at that, we'll see how it cuts in a second. But don't fear, the ice spice buns remain very much on the horizon. Maybe one later, let's see how this cuts. Nice generous slice there, Mary Berry would say. Look at the moisture there. Just cut a little bit off. My mum's lemon cake is truly exceptional.